I've done best I can. But I've been up low, and I've been down. But I've been mute.
One who knows his children. You know all about us, my Father, for you made us in the hollow of your own hand. And the while we're calling on your name, we're calling to ask that you would have mercy today upon those whom are sick and those who are afflicted. Somebody, my Father, been crying.
I can remember when they used to go back Texas and Oklahoma and all around and get loads of people, bring them in the fall, you know, for that purpose, to harvest their crops.
We landed in Marana and coming out on a cotton pick. And it was so good that, and better in Texas, Crockett, Texas, where I came from.
At the first beginning, I did not want to come. My husband persuaded me to come. I asked him, I said, do you grow, can you have your garden in Arizona? He said, oh yeah. See, he had been out here once. And I said, can you raise sweet potatoes? Oh yes. I said, peas? Yeah. I said, well, I'll go, but I don't want to.
No, you couldn't raise a garden because you was on the other people's place. And then you had to irrigate it. And that was another thing. And I'm gonna tell you, the water out here, every place they built a camp, it wasn't no water. We had to haul it from where the boss man lived.
I was very angry because it was so dry. We didn't have rain back then like we do now, not in 48 and 49 and 50 and 51. We didn't have weather like we do now. It was just dry. And you could start from Adamway's camp and go down to Marana, where Mr. Sidney McNeil owned the store, the big store there. We could go down there and you couldn't see nobody behind you. You couldn't see nobody in front of you for the dust. It was just that dusty. When you got there, you looked like you had been baptized in the sand when you got to the store. If you was on an open truck, I did not like it.
When I first started out here, they had these cloth campers, what really wasn't anything at all. You know, they put up these camps with the cloth campers, and they didn't have gas, they didn't have lights, they had outdoor toilets and everything. And most of them didn't even have a floor. You had the ground floor, you know what I mean? And some of them didn't even have heat. They'd haul wood, make a big barn for outside. And if it got real cold, you could get you something and burn some coals and put them in there and take them inside to warm your place up. So that's pretty well the way that people survive, you know?
I felt scary, frightened, as you call it, because I didn't have no idea the what you call it, tent top was secure enough for me. And then when it would rain and the wind would blow, I would be frightened.
Oh yeah, sure enough. For our feet is turned down to the mother earth and does. When. Blessing all other blessing our son Jesus' name for Christ's sakes. Amen.
Well, when we first came to Arizona from Texas, we didn't find no church. We didn't know where any churches at all was at. And so my husband got acquainted with Reverend Thompson Hopkins out in the cotton field, sitting down on a cotton sack. And Reverend Hopkins found out that my husband was a Christian, and he was a minister.
Well, Brother Art and Reverend Hopkins, they made the decision before Mr. Anway told them to leave, but where they were in the cotton patch, you know, and they was picking cotton, they sit down and talk among themselves and said that we should have church somewhere around here.
Mr. Anway come to us and told us, he said, I see y'all love the church work, don't you? See, he said, well, don't y'all never come to the field on a Sunday, then y'all go ahead and have your church. He said, "'Cause that's a good thing."
Let the church say amen. Say amen again. It was grace that brought us this far. And giving praises to the Father.
It was kind of in the midday, like he came there and he stood up on his truck and he told everybody he wanted to make an announcement. So he stood up and everybody listened, so he made that announcement. And he named who he wanted to stay on the camp. And the rest of them, they were on their own, he said.
I didn't feel bad at all, because that was their place, it wasn't mine. And that's all I can tell you. Because I didn't fuss and fight over nothing that didn't belong to me.
People didn't know anything about owning property. There's nowhere around that they knew that they could buy property, cheap enough as they could afford it, you know what I mean? And they found out, and that's why they got started buying this up here.
At that time, the black people could not buy land in Marana. I tried it 3 or 4 different times. And this was the only place that I could find at that time would fit my budget.
That's what made us decide to move, so we have something of our own. And we put up on our own little shanties, and so that's one of them there.
It's good to be in the house of the Lord one more time. It is good, my brothers and sisters, because it's not every day that we have this opportunity to come together. And I think when homecoming, it's good that we have homecoming. It's good because we're not going to get on the telephone and call up and see how you're doing, but if some bad news come along, we'll talk about it every day. But this homecoming helped bring us back together because it has been a year that has gone by. Homecoming has something to do with a family. How I say a family. Now, we are Christian, we are a family.
What Reverend Hopkins did with his land, he gave part of it to the church. He was real dedicated to the church.
He was very, very important to the community. If you need him, didn't care what time of night you request him to come to your rescue, Reverend Hopkins would come and do what he could for you.
He got real sick back in Texas, and everybody was wondering what was wrong with him. And he stayed asleep for a whole week. And then when he did wake up, well, the nurses say he woke up preaching. And they asked him, Thomas, are you a preacher? I said, no. So when you woke up, you was preaching. Well, I said he was just sent from God because, God, sometimes God have something for you to do and he punish you. If you don't do that, he'll punish you. And you'll be like Jonah. You'll be running. When he get through it, you'll be running to do that job. And so that's the way he was.
I'm not afraid. Amen. See this building? I'm part of it. Amen. I'm home. I'm home. This is my home. And wherever I go, I still go home.
Amen.
You can go here, you can go there. But every once in a while, I always say, I believe I go back home.
Amen.
What you see inside is a whole lot different from what it was when I first went there. A friend of mine, he helped me fix the inside like you see it now. He painted them windows and the pictures around in there.
And then we had another member. Her name was Opal Swindler. She was working for some peoples. And so these people, she kept telling these peoples about her church. She wanted to help pull the floor. And so they gave us some money to help pull the floor. And what these peoples did, this man, he came out, the people she worked for, and pulled the floor themselves for free of charge. And that's the way we got the floor in. So this was in 57, I believe.
I was the secretary of the church, and that's why I know that this is the place where we baptize at. And this was the first baptizing place that we baptized right here in this irrigation ditch.
The land where the daycare, Head Start is sitting now, that belongs to the church, in which we set that little spot of land aside to build a daycare on. And we thought that would be the best place to build it by the church. And that way, if you build it on somebody else's property, we'd had to pay rent, and maybe they get tired of it and wanted it moved in so many years. But we got it at the church where it would never be moved as long as the church stood there.
They tell me that the cross got so heavy that he went down to his knees. But there was a man named Simon of Cyrene who was compelled to help Jesus carry the cross. They tell me that two suns couldn't shine on the same day, that the sun up there went out, that the Son of Man could shine. But they tell me he took my Lord and your Lord down and laid him in a borrowed tomb. He stayed there all Friday night, never said a mumbling word.
When it first started, there wasn't anything on him but just mesquite trees. You didn't see anything out here. And since this community been developed into a neighborhood here, I think it helped grow tremendous around here. Because there used to be not anything, no streets, no roads, and no nothing. It was just desert laying out here.
We lived for 17 years without water in Rillito. We hauled water from across the railroad track out that tank, the railroad water. Out that big tank across the railroad track, that's where my husband would haul water from. Everybody in Rillito would get water from there.
We couldn't have no gardens, couldn't have no grass in the yard because you couldn't haul enough water.
We have walked the road and went to different places trying to get help to get things started here. So, you know, it was a whole different ball game because, and some of it, like I said, I didn't know how to go about it. I never did anything. I'm not that much of an educated person, so that complicated a lot of things. But I was always willing to do whatever I could.
And this place here is a place where I know a lot of people would like to be in these days. And what little problems do come up, we can take care of it as a community. We don't have to have nobody to come in and take care of our problem. We all just rooted and grounded right here until the Lord said, your time to move.
Rillito have come a long ways. And it's still, you know, improving itself. And it's gonna, you know, it's gonna take a while, especially when people don't have much, you know. They can't just go out there and do things like people that got all this money and stuff, all that stuff. It takes time. When people living off of fixed incomes and all that stuff, you know, they have to do the best they can.
You don't know how blessed you are. We are just, as that song said, I'm blessed, I'm blessed, I'm blessed. It is very tempting for black peoples to abandon the tribe. You know, my brothers and sisters, just because you're saying that you're a Christian, but we are tested in this area like day of life for a way of living that is contrary to our roots. Says this homecoming go back a long time ago.
We've been working hard ever since